For second reading of House Bill 6215 under Committee Report 167.
There is a motion. Hearing no objection, the same is hereby approved.
Under the agenda this morning, Mr. President, are the budgets of the following departments and its attached agencies: the Office of the Vice President, the Judiciary, the Office of the Ombudsman, the Civil Service Commission, COA, CHR, DPWH, budgetary support to government corporations, DFA, DSWD, DNR, other executive offices, and the budgetary support to government corporations. To present the budget of the Office of the Vice President, I move that we recognize the sponsor and chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Loren Legarda.
Senator Legarda is recognized.
Ready to defend the budgets, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I have one question to the budget of the Office of the Vice President.
Saan yun?
If the distinguished sponsor will favor us with an answer.
The Majority Leader may proceed if the distinguished sponsor so yields.
Yes, Mr. President.
I was informed that the Office of the Vice President has a program called Angat Buhay program. It's a nationwide anti-poverty program. May we know how much is the budget of the Office of the Vice President for that particular program?
Mr. President, it's 177,602,000 for subsidies and operational expenses for the implementation of the Angat Buhay program.
No, for the Angat Buhay program itself.
No, but this is...
You're talking
for
about the subsidies and...
Sure. So this is part of... Yes. It's 177,602 for Angat Buhay, both for subsidies and to implement the program, I am told, Mr.
Yes, to
President.
implement the program itself only.
Yes.
Because according to the Vice President, it is less than 12 million. The implementation. We're not talking about the personal services.
Mr. President,
and all the
I
other
am
stuff.
told that the 177 million is for the operations and subsidies, of which Angat Buhay is a part.
Part lang. O di, ang Angat Buhay program itself mismo.
Magkano yung Angat Buhay mismo? Why? Apparently, Mr. President, the OVP did not submit in their NEP a specific line item provision for Angat Buhay. If I am hearing, Mr. President, that we should fund the Angat Buhay program as the Vice President goes around the country, then I would be happy
yes.
to amend the budget.
Yes, precisely. That is what I was thinking, Madam President. That's why I called, I was asking. So, would say 20 million would be enough, Mr. President?
MOE. MOE. Yes, Mr. President, an earmarked line item, MOOE, Angat Buhay project or program for the Office of the Vice President.
All right. Thank you then. In the period of amendments, we will make sure that we incorporate that. I have no more questions, Mr. President.
Let me just clarify, the 177,602 stays, which can be used in part for the operations and subsidies of Angat Buhay, and we will augment or have a separate line item for Angat Buhay for 20 million.
Thank you, Mr. President. Then we will do so during the period of amendment. May we now
Thank you.
recognize the Minority Leader, Mr. President.
Senator Drilon is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before anything else, we wish to acknowledge the presence of the Vice President Plenary Robredo, who is with us in the hall today.
The presence of our distinguished Vice President Lenny Robredo, is hereby placed on the record.
There being no more questions on the budget of the Office of the Vice President, the minority has no objection to any motion to submit the same for the consideration of the plenary, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, in that case, I move that the budget of the Office of the Vice President be deemed submitted for the body's consideration, Mr. President.
There is a motion to consider as having been submitted the budget of the Office of the Vice President. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the same is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we now call on the budget of the Judiciary. This includes the Supreme Court of the Philippines and the lower courts, the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Appeals, and the Court of Tax Appeals.
There is a motion to hear the budget of the Supreme Court, the PET, the Sandigan Bayan, the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Tax Appeals. There being no objection, the same is hereby open, but the Chair would like to declare a 1-minute suspension in order to afford the members of the Judiciary time to locate themselves behind the distinguished sponsor. Session is suspended for a minute.
Wala naman akong tanong eh, ikaw lang. Brief. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I now move that we consider the budget of the Judiciary, Supreme Court of the Philippines and the lower courts, the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Appeals, and the Court of Tax Appeals. Request, Mr. President, as requested by the minority leader and some of our members, may we ask the sponsor to briefly inform us of the budget and the total budget, if there's an increase or a decrease?
Senator Legarda, the sponsor for the budget of the Judiciary and its attached agencies, is hereby recognized. You may proceed, ma'am.
Mr. President, the total budget of the Judiciary is 33,544,297. If you want the breakdown, the Supreme Court and lower courts has the bulk of the budget, 30,637,328. The Presidential Electoral Tribunal, 118,933. No, sorry, 118 million. This is million, right? Million. Sandigan Bayan, 964,770,000. Court of Appeals, 1,238,307,000. Court of Tax Appeals, 584,959,000. And I mentioned the total of the Judiciary. Where is Court of Tax Appeals? Wala po si Oman. Sabihin mo, hindi ko papasa budget niya kasi wala siya.
May we now recognize the minority leader, Mr. President.
Our distinguished minority floor leader, Senator Drilon, is recognized.
Will the sponsor yield to a few questions, Mr.
Yes,
President?
Mr. President.
Yes, we are raising questions not because we have any disagreement with the budget of the Judiciary, but to place on record certain concerns which continue to hound the judiciary over the past several years. And this is the question of the vacancies in the judiciary. During the committee hearing, we discovered that the judiciary has difficulty filling up positions, particularly in the position of stenographers and other judicial positions. And this affects the disposition rate, I understand, especially in the trial courts, because the cases could not be decided unless the transcription of records of the transcripts of the testimonies are finished. In fact, Justice Peralta, I don't know, jokingly, I don't know if it was a joke, he said that the Senate is one of those agencies which keep on recruiting and poaching on their stenographers because there's a better pay here in the Senate. So may I know, for the record, how many vacancies there are, first on the non-judges positions?
Ito ba yun? Is this non-judges? This is everything already, including judges.
Yes.
Mr. President, let me just put on record, please, the unfilled positions for the Supreme Court. That's 773. For the PET, it's 81. For the Court of Appeals, 207. Sandigan Bayan, 68. Court of Tax Appeals, 69. First level courts, 3,933. And the second level courts, 9,591. This is the total unfilled positions as of June 30 this year.
Are those staff positions, or are those
These are all
for
staff,
the
no?
judges? I assume for the staff.
This, both staff and judges, Mr. President.
How many, well, we can take up the matter of the judges later on. Let's first go to the staff positions which we
The
raised.
breakdown of staff and
How many, is it, I have my notes here, which says that the number of authorized positions is 39 in 2000, currently is 35,897, and only 25,159 are filled up. Is this a correct data that I have?
Are you referring to the lower courts, Mr. President?
To the Supreme Court and lower court staffing pattern.
The Supreme Court.
That's why I'm trying to confirm.
Yes.
What is the correct figure, Mr.
Well,
President?
Mr. President, those are the figures I read into the record are the total unfilled positions in the various courts.
So, now, I am talking about the staffing pattern. Remove first the judges, because...
You want the total authorized positions?
Yes, and
Yes.
if we can break it down to vacancy involving judges and vacancy involving staff support.
Let me just put on record, please, the total authorized positions. For Supreme Court, it's 2,595. For the PET, it's 151. Court of Appeals, 1,774. Sandigan Bayan, 475. Court of Tax Appeals, 337. First level courts, 14,486. Second level courts, 21,945. I previously stated the unfilled positions, and those, you minus that would be the filled positions, and then the percentage of unfilled positions of the Supreme Court, 30%, PET, 46%, Court of Appeals, 12%, Sandigan, 14%, Court of Tax Appeals, 20%, first level courts, 27%, and the second level courts, 44%. Wala ako nung mga...
And you have no disaggregation of what vacancies pertain to the purely judicial positions and what vacancies pertain to the non-judges positions.
They don't have the breakdown now. If you will, may I request for suspension so that they could find the materials? We don't have the breakdown.
Okay, just on general principles, I assume the common sense would tell us that the vacancies in the staffing, in the staff positions will be much more than those in the judiciary. May we know what is the reason why there is such a huge number of vacancies, for the record?
Mr. President, there are newly created courts which are still being organized, and therefore the positions are still unfilled. On the other hand, there are also courts which are not yet created. Mr. President, first, there are newly organized courts, and so there are still positions to be filled and being processed. So perhaps these percentages that I read into the record will be lower because of the newly organized courts. Second, there are, I am told, organized courts, but the budgets are unreleased. Is that correct? Even if there are authorized positions? Why is the budget unreleased? They have to wait for the advice from DBM for the authorization to fill in the budget and to fund the budget. And third, perhaps it's still the difficulty of hiring competent people for the job. Correct? So tatlo po, newly organized, pinaprocess. So bababa po tong porsyentong to. Pangalawa po, ay inaantay pa sa DBM, maski organisado na po yung korte, iniintay pa po yung authority at funding sa DBM. Pangatlo po, hindi po talaga madali kumuha o mag-hire ng mga taong competent to fill in the positions.
You know, Mr. President, in the absence of exact data, is it correct to assume that the bulk of these vacancies are in the existing positions in organized courts where there are no takers?
Yes, you're correct. In some areas, yes, there are no takers.
No, that's why this is what was borne out during the discussion at the committee
At
level.
the committee level, yes.
That the vacancies are numerous on the existing courts, principally because of the staffing of the, how do you call that? The salary scale, which
Shari.
because of the inequality between certain branches of government, the staff is attracted to go to the other agencies. And indeed, this has caused a lack of applicants. Does the committee have any idea how to address this?
We are continuing with the yes, for recruitment at the same time.
Mr. President, they are aggressively recruiting both judges and non-judge positions to fill the unfilled positions. Second, for the judges,
We have submitted already.
they've submitted a list,
Yeah, short list.
a short list for the judges so that the courts can be organized, Mr. President.
How many how many vacancies are there in the judiciary positions, excluding those which are unorganized?
How many? Ilan ang-
And what is the percentage of this?
How many vacancies aside from those unorganized?
Vacancies, courts.
Yeah, lower courts. Ilan ang vacancies pero hindi nyo isama yung hindi pa organized? There are 802 unfilled judges position, is that correct?
For both old and newly created courts.
For created courts, both new and old old courts and newly created courts, there is a vacancy of 802. Am I accurate? 802 for judges, Mr. President.
Well, I think it is useful for us just to look at initially what are the vacancies in organized courts, because
802 organized courts.
no, the 802, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, Mr. President, includes the vacancies in the newly
Created
authorized courts which are not yet organized, because we have to admit.
I'm asking for the breakdown, Mr. President.
Yes.
Yung organized lang. Oo, yung old.
Vacancies to organize
Okay.
courts with
Ito na po, Mr. President. Ang total vacancies for organized courts without regular presiding judge is 426. The unfilled authorized positions, vacancies for unorganized courts is 376. So total vacancies is 802.
Mr. President, isn't 426 quite a large number of unfilled positions in organized courts? I'm a little concerned about this large volume of vacancies.
They do it by region.
No, kulang ba ng tao, ng judge, kulang ng aplikante? Kulang o marami? Or marami ba? Mr. President, I am told that there is no dearth of talent. There are applicants for judges' positions. It's just that this is done on a regional scale, on the regional level, on a regional basis, and the process of the JBC is not exactly quick. But I've asked, and they say that there is no dearth of talent. There are enough applicants for the judge's position, and this is done in the regional level. Perhaps a minority leader would be in a better position to know the process.
There is,
I am just told that the process of the JBC is slow.
I do not understand what is meant by the same being filled up on a regional level, because all vacancies are processed and recommendations are made on the national level through the Judicial and Bar Council. I do not know what regional level means as mentioned by the good sponsor.
Yes, Mr.
But,
President.
yes.
I thought it was national too, but I am told that they do the assessment, the processing per region for the JBC before it goes to the national.
To another region. They go from one region to another. With respect to accepting applications.
I see.
it's-
Mr. President, yeah, sorry. I'll
It
clarify.
only, the way I understand it, they go to the region, process and screen the applicants there, and submit their preliminary report to the JBC. That's all that there
They
is
don't
to
do
it.
it
Is that correct?
simultaneously?
No, they don't.
I see. They don't do the processing of judges per region simultaneously. If they do
yes.
region 1,
Yes,
they do region
yes.
1 first.
Yes,
They
it's-
finish region 1.
Yeah.
They finish a short list. Then they go to region 2. Maybe that's why the process is slow. Why don't they do the region
That's what we're
simultaneously?
saying. Maybe we can change certain habits in the JBC.
Yeah.
I used to sit in the Judicial and Bar Council, something like 30 or 25 years ago. That's the same thing that we were doing 25 years ago. That's why the vacancies are never filled up on time. Maybe it's about time that there is a review of the manner in which vacancies are filled up, because 426 vacancies in the lower courts for judges
Okay,
is something that should invite our attention, as this causes delay in the dispensation of justice, especially in cases where there are detention prisoners who cannot whose cases cannot be tried because of lack of judges.
Yes. Mr. President, I thank you for your questions. In fact, perhaps because of this discussion, we can improve the way the JBC is processing the judge's application because, for example, the total number of applicants is 6,261
No,
from January to December of 2016 for only 187 vacancies with shortlist submitted by the JBC to the Office of the President. Imagine, 6,200 for 187. Hindi po ito magkukulang. Pangalawa po, January to June of this year, 119 vacancies with shortlists submitted by JBC. And the total number of applicants is 2,774. So, hindi po tayo nagkukulang sa abogado, hindi po tayo nagkukulang sa mga gustong
Shakespeare
maging
said-
judge, hindi tayo nagkukulang po sa talento. Ang proseso po ang mabagal because I am told they do it per region, meaning, as I told you earlier, Region 1, they have to complete the short list of Region 1, and I said, why don't they do it simultaneously? Because they said that all of them have to be interviewed and come to Manila. And if they do it simultaneous, all regions together, it would be difficult for the JBC to do so. So perhaps I would be happy to receive a suggestion from Your Honor, Mr. President, on how the process can still be efficient and orderly, but being, more efficient and faster to do a simultaneous shortlisting and interviews by JBC of all the regions together.
I have no suggestion. I would rather that the suggestion come from the judiciary. And we
Yes.
just look at it and review and give our suggestions. It's
So-
a little difficult to
Yes.
initiate this suggestion when you're an outsider. I mean, you're not
Okay.
in the judiciary.
No, I put it on the floor because it's a very important concern, and I'm grateful that the minority leader, as always, brings up certain important issues which can have special provisions in the budget. So we will only approve their budget subject to their recommendation of a special provision in the judiciary budget on how to expedite the shortlisting and appointment of judges to improve the JBC process. So we will use their brilliance and their better judgment to submit to the Committee on Finance before the budget is completed by this October on a new and better and quicker process for the shortlisting for the JBC. Gagawin mo?
Maybe it's a little too short a period. We can give them a little more time. We did not hold on the approval on the basis of the submission of the plan. We can have the plan submitted anyway. We have a monitoring mechanism on the budget, and we can always call in the court administrator
Can you
or the
submit
JBC and find out how far they have gone in reforming the process of recruitment in order to fill up the vacancy at a faster rate. Madam President, we do not have to hold on to the budget. We can, my suggestion is that we proceed with the budget and just put on record that we will be calling on them,
Yes.
say on the first quarter of next year, in order for them to tell us how we have processed, how we have improved the process. As the budget call for 2019 will be on the first quarter of next year.
No, Mr. President, they're meeting with the JBC this Friday, and I am told before the period of amendments, which is still on November 20 anyway, they would be ready to give if just a general or special provision in the judiciary budget so that it is on record in next year's GAA that we've expressed this concern, they're doing something about it to fill the unfilled vacancies.
I leave it to the sound discretion of the committee and the
Yeah.
chair
So
and
you
the
will
sponsor.
submit to us.
Another area of concern, not really concern, but just for the record, we recently passed a law which we worked on, which was worked on by this representation, in order to update the money values in the revised penal code, on which the penalties are based. We did this in order to also unclog the dockets of the courts and make the system more justified given the fact that the values in the revised penal code upon which the penalty is based is reckoned as of 1930 when the revised penal code was crafted. May we know what is the effect of this insofar as the congestion of the courts are concerned?
The Republic Act 10951 has been helpful. in decongesting the cases in courts?
Already,
I'm sorry?
we're asking the judges.
The judges are being asked to implement and implement it as well.
I understand from Justice Peralta that this has also resulted in changes in the jurisdiction between the regional trial courts and the first level and the municipal and city courts. May we ask that, maybe in November or December, that we be given data as to exactly the effect of the law insofar as cases transferred to the municipal or
Yes.
city courts are
Yes,
concerned.
Mr. President.
And the number of cases that were, or the number of, if they have, the number of convicted prisoners.
Yes.
who
Mr.
would
President,
have,
because of
been
the new
released.
law, in fact, theft and robbery cases are being tried in the first level courts, in the municipal and the city courts, I am told. And yes, indeed, this newly enacted law will help in decongesting the courts.
Well, I am a little concerned about that the cases being moved to the first level courts, because I know for a fact that the first level courts are also
Clogged.
clogged. So this is an unintended result. If indeed they are moved from the regional trial courts to the first level courts, I am concerned that the first level courts docket will again be filled. But I would wait for the formal report of the judiciary on this point, and we would appreciate that report to be coming to us shortly.
Many are pleading guilty already.
Yes. Mr. President, I am told that the first level courts are faster than the RTCs, and because the rules are faster. And while we have heard your concern, but if the law was not implemented, it would be more congested. It probably will be less congestion, but still congested, but it's a big help that these cases of theft, robbery are already tried in the lower courts.
Yeah. By the way, for the record, we passed that law.
And the accused are pleading guilty.
Many because the lesser offense.
Because of the lesser offense, Mr. President, some of the accused, lesser offense, lower penalty than being tried in the lower court, so the accused are pleading guilty to their offenses.
Yeah, just for the record, we passed this law because of the case decided by Justice Peralta, which instructed Congress to pass this kind of legislation.
Which is, I'm sorry, may I be enlightened, which case are you referring to?
Maybe I can't remember the case, but in one,
Corpus case.
Okay.
it's a People versus Corpus, where the court said that there is reason to impose a lower penalty, but Congress has to act on this. And they have been, I know that they've been asking us to do this. We finally did it. So in any case, Mr. President, I think we have spread on the record the concerns that we have, and we no longer have any questions on the judiciary. And unless there is any other member of the chamber who would raise questions, the minority would have no objection to the submission of the budget of the judiciary as recommended by the Committee on Finance. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair would like to thank our distinguished Majority Floor Leader. The Majority Floor Leader is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. There being no other member who has manifested the intention to interpolate, I move to close the interpellation and consider the budget of the judiciary and its attached agencies, namely the Supreme Court of the Philippines and the lower courts, the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Tax Appeals, the Court of Appeals, be deemed submitted for the body's consideration.
There is a motion to close the period of interpellation and to consider as having been deemed submitted the proposed budget of the judiciary to include the Supreme Court and lower courts, the PET, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Appeals, and the Court of Tax Appeals. Is there any objection? Chair is none. Senator Gordon is recognized.
With your indulgence, Mr. President, and with the respect to the Majority Floor Leader, I just have one question, if I may be allowed to do so, with the Supreme Court, whom I have a greatest respect to.
I withdraw my motion, Mr. President.
Motion is withdrawn.
Thank you. I just have one simple question, Your Honor. In our investigation of drugs, the issue that is beginning to rise is the apparent slowness, and I've taken this up with the Chief Justice herself, with respect to one judge. And it turned out that we were being given false information by PIDEA and the Department of Justice, that the judges were kind of slow in ordering the destruction of drugs. And as you know, under the dangerous drugs law, authored by no less than the majority floor leader, the PIDEA has 24 hours to examine, and then the courts have 72 hours to conduct an ocular inspection of the drugs, after which the drugs should immediately be burned. I was astounded, Your Honor, and forgive me for not asking her permission to ask the gentle lady. I'm now asking permission if I may ask the gentle lady these questions. I was astounded that this year alone, Integrated, which is supposed to be one of the contracted entities that would burn drugs, has only burnt once. And there have been practically so many thousands of grams that have been confiscated, not to mention the other one. Now, this is very disconcerting, Your Honor, because we allegedly have a war on drugs, and yet I don't know if the problem is really with PIDEA, but certainly the Supreme Court should make it known to all the judges that immediately it doesn't have to look over copious drugs when they're collected, when they're picked up, immediately after they've done an ocular inspection of, let's say, 360 bags out of 700, they can immediately order the burning thereof so that there would be no recycling of drugs. Ano nangyayari po ay pinapaikot yung drugs, hindi natin namamalayan. Huli tayo ng huli, marami namamatay di umano ng mga drug pushers, pero yung palang mga nahuhuling drugs ay pinapaikot. In fact, Your Honor, doon sa isang wake, ng isang gabi lamang, binigyan po ko ng envelope ng isang mamahayag na respetado na galing sa Channel 7 na ngayon ay sumusulat sa bulletin at nabigay pa ng pangalan. At ito ay pinag-aaralan ko pa na pinapaikot yung drugs na matagal na. Matagal na racket na ginagawa yan, and it is going through under the noses of the Supreme Court's judges. I'm not saying the Supreme Court, but the judges under the Supreme Court. So, is there any way we can have a monitoring of drug cases? I have a proposal here where all cases involving policemen would be monitored, and there would only be one judge in every province who would handle all police cases involving killings. Now I'm going to have to come up with a provision where all courts, there would only be one court with respect to dangerous drugs, so that we would know who is malingering, or who is cheating, or who is really creating a travesty upon our laws and committing dastardly acts upon our young people because they allow the constant recycling of drugs.
Mr. President, do you have the information now? No. Mr. President, we requested for the information you need, the list of all pending drug cases in various courts of the country and how long it's been pending, and the amount of drugs which are not with them but lodged with the PIDEA. It's PIDEA, no?
Yes.
And
the NBI sometimes.
and the NBI.
And the
So,
police.
yes, and they will give the information within this week. So that that would be helpful to your committee, and we'll see how long these cases have been dragging. I just want to clarify, Mr. President, when you mentioned pinapaikot, what does that actually mean, pinapaikot?
Recycle.
You mean,
They confiscate the drugs, and the courts, they will not act on it. In the meantime, they're selling the drugs again.
you,
And with the help of some corrupt judges, they
the
will say
PIDEA or
they will report
NBI
them.
and police, not the judges, right? Because they don't have
Some
custody.
judges are involved.
Oh, that's why I was asking them. So, Mr. President,
Wala.
what you're saying is, so first, we have to have a list of all drug cases in every court around the country and how long it's been there, and where is the evidence? Is it lodged in the PDEA, the NBI, or the police, and how long has the evidence been there? And third, most importantly, your report or allegation that some of the custodians of this evidence in the three agencies I mentioned, including the judge, may know that the evidence is being recycled and sold. Is that what Your Honor is saying?
Yes, and the judges may be remiss in their functions.
Yes.
If they fail to do an ocular inspection and they don't order the burning, then there's something going on.
Sure.
There's something rotten in the streets of Denmark, Your Honor, as they say.
Yeah. Correct. Gano'ng kahaba ba? Gano'ng kahaba? Ano ba ho ang
The problem, Your Honor, if I may, is that sometimes the judges have to go through the PDEA. And sometimes, for example, in the last cases, they had about 6.4 million grams that were taken. I think the COA should immediately come in and take a look at what has been confiscated to help the judges. I can see the chairman of the COA here. I think that's also within their... I would imagine that the majority floor leader would be willing to make an amendment to that effect, that every time there is an arrest, COA comes in right away and inspect it so that you have a layering, so that we know right away how many drugs have been confiscated.
Mr. President, I am told that while the judges issue the orders, the implementors of the orders, which are the custodians of the evidence, the PDEA, the NBI, the police, you're correct, should burn it destroy it within
Must
24
burn it.
hours. But it's not done all the time. According to the members of the judiciary present here, it is not, the judges have no knowledge of the evidence not being burned or destroyed and it being recycled. However, to prevent that, it would be good for the judges to have strict monitoring of the enforcement or implementation of their court orders and decision. Just like we lawmakers, it is not enough that we craft the law and bahala na kung ipatupad yung ating batas.
Your
We
Honor.
exercise strict oversight into the implementation of our law. And so, may I suggest, and I just told them, if they could submit to the committee, which will include in their budget, a reminder for the judges in drug cases to have strict monitoring of the implementation of their decisions or order to burn and destroy the evidence, especially in drug cases, and to have strict oversight in this custodian institutions that have the evidence.
Just for clarification, Your Honor, once you file a case in court, the judges get involved. They have to do an ocular, which means that the case is in their jurisdiction. So it
Yes.
is within their power to call PDEA, have you burned it? Do you have proof that it has been burned? And if they don't do that,
They
they're
don't do that.
remiss.
Yes. Ang nakikita ko po, Mr. President, ay hindi nila fina-follow up or hindi po nila minomonitor kung pinapatupad na ang kanilang order. Because that, hindi pwedeng i-abogadong kasi hindi yung ebidensya. Senator Gordon is correct in saying that while you claim that it is the evidence with PDEA, that's your jurisdiction already.
Yes.
And that's your evidence. You cannot claim it's the evidence of the PDEA, so we have nothing to do with that. No, that's why that's the wrong attitude. That's why, that's the wrong attitude, na hindi namin ebidensya yan, kaya hayaan mo ang PDEA. So we are requesting, earnestly requesting the judges to issue a memorandum to all judges to destroy their evidence within 24 hours. First, for them to give us a list of all judges who have jurisdiction over court cases. Number two, for to match the information from the judiciary and the PDEA, NBI, and police so that we see how long this evidence has been there. And third, for them to craft a special provision for strict monitoring of the implementation of their court orders within 24 hours destruction of the evidence, as Your Honor has stated.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader is
permission of
recognized.
Senator Gordon and Senator Legarda, As mentioned, yes, I am the principal author of Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002. But this particular amendment and this particular provision in the law was introduced by the minority leader. So with their indulgence, may we hear the minority leader on that particular provision itself, Mr. President?
Senator Drilon is recognized for his intervention on this
Thank you,
issue.
Mr. President. Yes, we confirm the statement of the majority leader that we did insert this particular provision because of our experience as Secretary of Justice when, we were trying cases in the lower court. When the contraband is presented as evidence, kulang na po, kinain daw ng daga.
Yes.
Kaya, the reason it was that experience,
Malalaki yung daga.
and I am sure
Ilang paa po ng daga?
Justice Peralta is smiling, but as prosecutor in Manila, he has gone through similar experience from PDEA. That is why we inserted this particular clause in the law, which says, and let me quote briefly, it says, after filing of the criminal case, the court shall, within 72 hours, conduct an
tama.
ocular inspection
Hindi nyo ginagawa.
of the confiscated, seized, and or surrendered dangerous drugs, plant sources of dangerous drugs, controlled precursors and essential chemicals, including instruments or paraphernalia and or laboratory equipment, and through the PDEA shall, within 24 hours thereafter, proceed with the destruction and burning of the same in the presence of the accused. So first, it is very clear that within 72 hours, the court should conduct an inspection within 72 hours after the case, after the information is filed. And within 24 hours from that inspection, should already proceed to destroy. And I confirm the statement of Senator Gordon that indeed there's a lot of recycling going on. That is why every hearing, every budget hearing of the PDEA, this representation would always ask for the inventory of the drug case, of the drugs in the possession of PDEA, and we are always alarmed at the volume of goods of drugs which are stored in the PDEA for years now. Which brings to mind, we know on the record of the Senate there are 604 kilograms of shabu recently confiscated, plus another 800 that were confiscated in December as being investigated by the Blue Ribbon. We are all in the absence of information. Certainly, we are concerned as to how much of these drugs are still can be recycled. In fact, Mr. President, after the destruction, the law also specifically provides that the board, meaning the Dangerous Drugs Board, shall issue a sworn certificate as to the fact of destruction or burning, which the certification is submitted to the court. I am sure, Mr. President, that I am almost certain that if you look at the court records of these hundreds, if not thousands, of drug cases, you cannot find the certification as part of the folio, because this certification, I suspect, is not being submitted, and therefore the drugs are still there, and this can be seen in the annual report of the PDEA and the Dangerous Drugs Board, where they list the number or the volume of drugs in their possession. Very dangerous, Mr. President. And as long as this continues to prevail, then I am afraid that this is one facet of the drug problem which is not being addressed, and which is a low-lying fruit, so-called,
Yes.
which can easily be addressed.
Mr.
Thank you,
President,
Mr. President, for allowing us that intervention.
That's very important. Thank you, Mr. President, for citing Section 4 in Republic Act 9165. And I am informed that the 72 hours deadline for the ocular inspection is being complied with. However, I am also informed that it is their belief that the 24 hours deadline for the burning rests or is the responsibility of the PDEA, but perhaps what they could do is to make sure that the PDEA actually implements this, because there could be an ocular inspection, but if the burning is not monitored by the court, so it would be useless. And so we will ask the judiciary to submit, please, the list of all pending drug cases and the compliance, a matrix, the compliance of the 72-hour ocular inspection and the 24-hour burning, and we will verify this with the list of the PDEA, the PNP, or the NBI, wherever the evidence is located. And we will also ask for the sworn certification, if any, because the minority leader has mentioned, in some cases, the certification is not present. So the judges must have a copy of this certification, right? It should be on their file. So that will be part of the submission.
Your Honor, I will finish already, but anyway, I want just to give you an eye-opener here. There are years when the PDEA has not burned anything.
In violation of 9165.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
They go to integrated, for example, and in integrated in 2017, until August, they've only burnt once, 141,776. But the PDEA inventory remains at 1,871,000 grams.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
Why are they not
You may as well faint, Your Honor. We might have the headlines if we all faint here to know
1
that
million.
this is not being undertaken. There must be a return by PDEA to the courts and to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court should keep an eagle eye over all these things so that the public will be safe. Now, look at the inventory in the past. 2013, 0 for clean leaf, 16,000 for integrated, and their under the custody was 81,000, Your Honor. Solid is 1,067,000, and they burnt only 83,000. So it's very, very clear. I would be very happy to give this to the Supreme Court representatives so that they themselves can daily monitor and maybe have an assigned justice just for drugs in every branch so that we would know who is fooling who. There has got to be an organization behind this that is undertaking it. Either the judges are intimidated or the judges are bought and the PDEA is in cahoots. Yes, it's right here. 1 million grams. 1 million grams. Yes. Yes. 1 billion. No, 10,000 kilos. 10,000 kilos. Yes. And this is chemical poisoning, Your Honor.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader is recognized.
again, with the permission of Senator Gordon and the sponsor, perhaps this particular issue also may be raised during the budget of PDEA and the Dangerous Drugs Board later. I remember 1 or 2 years ago, they were asked about this, and their answer was there is no court order. That's why perhaps we can pick the mind of my fellow letra knight, Justice Peralta. If they will agree in amending, if we do amend Republic Act 9165, we will remove the requirement for destroying. Pag nahuli, quantify, qualify, submit to the court, then destroy. Now, if there is no case, dahil yun ang sasabihin ng PDEA sa iba, walang kaso eh. Yan ang sagot nila. Abangan mo mamaya, yan ang isasagot. There's no case eh, kaya hawak namin. Hindi namin nadi-destroy. Hintayin namin na dumami, saka namin di-destroy. Do you think it will not be a hindrance if we amend the law and destroy, whether there is a court case or not, within a certain number of
Yes.
hours. Will that be acceptable? What do you think, Justice Peralta, through the sponsor, Madam
Your
Sponsor?
Honor, I would be happy to join, I'm sure the whole Senate would be happy to join that amendment right away, but we have to get the feel from the Supreme Court whether they can indeed police it under present circumstances. Dapat masira lahat yung drug center, umiikot yan eh. We now have two problems, Your Honor. Drugs are coming in through customs, in wild abandon. And the other problem is, the drugs are not being burnt. So you have a conflagration happening in our country right now. And if we don't do this, it will never stop. And kawawa naman ang tao na, at yung police na lahat sila na involved sa patayan, eh talagang walang tigil yan. So, Supreme Court has got to have something done insofar as the judge is concerned
President.
right away to make sure that they give a return and to make sure that they can order the PIDEA. Why are you not prosecuting? If these drugs are there, why are you not prosecuting? The Department of Justice should also order their prosecutors to do so. And if they're not doing so, they're in dereliction of duty.
With the permission of the gentleman and lady on the floor, drugs, very much like any prohibited item, is contraband. The law can so specify that any contraband, with or without a case, can and should be destroyed. My reservation is in asking for an opinion from the Supreme Court Justice, which I think he is well aware of and is in agreement. Perhaps the proper agency, as pointed out by our majority leader, would be PIDEA on this particular issue of destruction of contraband without a pending case, in order for us to be able to proceed with the budget of the judiciary. Again, with the indulgence of the gentleman who have the floor.
1 minute suspension, Mr.
Session is
President.
suspended.
Or they will most of the time caretaker, but also congressman.
Yung San Juan, wala pang kaso yun?
We're ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Senator Gordon, Mr. President.
Senator Gordon is recognized.
Madam Chair, I would just like to ask, there was a memorandum of agreement between the PIDEA or between the court and PIDEA, if I'm not mistaken, on how to handle this. Whatever happened to that memorandum of agreement?
Was there a memorandum of agreement? No. They are not familiar with any memorandum, Mr. President. They are nodding their heads, shaking,
I'm
shaking,
astounded.
nodding.
I'm dumbfounded.
So am I.
Is the court administrator here?
Or all. Wala memorandum.
We will pass the budget, Your Honor. I mean, I'm not against the Supreme Court, but we would just like to make sure that we get that
Mr.
memorandum.
President, is the question a memorandum between PDEA and the courts?
The court, yes, Your Honor.
Wala po eh.
Meron. Sabi ni Secretary, the former Secretary of Justice and former Senate President knows where all the dead bodies are buried in this country. So he knows that, Your Honor, he knows
Wala
that.
Wala po silang memorandum na alam po nila.
Well, maybe we should go back and check it. I mean, anyway, we're going to look into this matter because this should really be looked at in a congressional, in a senatorial
Yes,
investigation.
yes.
And I didn't mean to intervene. I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware that there's a huge problem.
Yes.
And if we sleep on it, it's going to go away. And it's going to perpetrate its evil upon our country.
Mr. President, may I just clarify, the memorandum you're asking is initiated by the PDEA with the courts?
That was initiated, I believe,
We're just checking the veracity. We do not know.
well,
There is none.
well, we will check the veracity.
I'm glad
Maybe
that you
that's what
asked
I
it
wa-
so
I
that
want
it's
to-
brought
Maybe that's
to
what we
our-
want to know.
Yes.
The veracity of such a memorandum, and
Wala
I'm sure
daw.
there's something buried in the files there at the Supreme Court that we can find. Now, Your Honor, we will, Senator, the majority floor leader and I have agreed that we should talk about this and find some solution to it in a more lasting manner. But if you will allow me, I just have one statement to make. I sit in the Judicial Bar Council, and in fairness to the Judicial Bar Council, we try as much as possible to be very fast because we know justice is very slow in this country. And for the information of the minority floor leader, I have personally been in discussion complaining about certain matters such as this, including a letter that was made to the Chief Justice concerning some judges who were issuing search warrants that resulted in the death of people in jail. And that is part, I consider, as part of my duties as chairman of the Committee on Justice. So, in fairness to my colleagues there, there's a voluminous number of people applying to be judges, and I don't know why. Some of them are very qualified, some of them are not very qualified, and there's a strenuous effort to try and find out who are the best that can be recommended. And that is why the process perhaps need to be changed eventually in the future if we find that too slow. Thank you.
Chair would like to thank Senator Gordon for
Thank
his
you, Senator
intervention. Senator Soto is recognized for
Thank
the
you, Mr.
corresponding motion he made earlier.
Yes, Mr. President, I restate my motion. I move to close interpellations and consider the budget of the Judiciary, namely the Supreme Court of the Philippines and the lower courts, Presidential Electoral Tribunal, the Sandigan Bayan, the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Tax Appeals, deemed submitted for the body's consideration.
There is a motion. Hearing no objection, the motion of the majority leader to close the period of interpellation and consider as submitted the budget of the Judiciary to include the Supreme Court, PET, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Appeals, and Court of Tax Appeals, as well as the lower courts, is hereby approved. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we call on the budget of the Office of the Ombudsman, I move to suspend the session for a minute.
Session is suspended for a minute.
Ready to resume, Mr. President?
Session is resumed.
May we now call on the sponsor of the budget, Senator Legarda, to present the budget of the Office of the Ombudsman.
Senator Legarda is recognized to sponsor the proposed budget of the Office of the Ombudsman for fiscal year 2018. You may proceed, ma'am.
Ito na yung total.
No, ma'am. Yes, this is the total. This is the increase.
Increase from the gap.
Yes,
Yes. Yes, Mr. President, the budget of the Office of the Ombudsman is 2,640,851,000. There is an increase of 143,653,000 in the Senate version from the GAB.
Mr. President, there are no interpellators, so I move that the budget of the Office of the Ombudsman be deemed submitted for the body's consideration.
There is a motion to close the period of interpellation and debate for the budget of the Office of the Ombudsman and to consider the same as submitted. Is there any objection? Chair is none. The same is hereby approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for a 1-minute suspension to call the budget of the Civil Service Commission.
Session is suspended, but before that, may we ask the Civil Service Commission family to kindly situate yourselves behind the Finance Committee Chairperson. Session is suspended.
Wala nagpa-reserve.
For civil service.
Oo ah. Wala rin nagpa-reserve. Wala rin pag-reserve. Pagkatapos doon, suspend na, break na, kasi DPWH, kasunod mahaba yun. Oo. Nakapila na yun. Civil service. Civil service. Ready ka? We ready to resume, Mr. President?
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we ask Senator Legarda to present the budget of the Civil Service Commission that includes the Civil Service Commission and the Career Executive Service Board.
Senator Legarda is recognized, and you may proceed, ma'am, to sponsor the budget of the CSC to include the Career Executive Service Board.
Mr. President, Civil Service Commission, including the Career Executive Service Board, has a total budget of 1,561,560,000. The Senate version increased the Civil Service Commission by 71,870,000. Tatanong ka?
Mr. President,
Okay.
no interpellators. I move that the budget of the Civil
With the
Service
permission of the
Commission,
majority floor leader, Senator Gordon
Senator
an
Gordon
intervention?
wishes to be recognized.
Senator Gordon is recognized.
Pinaupo ako dito eh. Siya pala ang vice chair ko rito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the indulgence of the lovely sponsor,
You know, I have a vice chair. I forgot I have a vice chair.
I was talking about the lady, Your Honor. Will you please get that man out of the chair? Just kidding. I have two very short questions on matters of philosophy of the civil service. Your Honor, you're familiar with the gentleman is familiar with the term employment at will.
Yes, Your Honor. Employment at will.
With the recurring
Employment at will.
problem of the customs, where people say it will take thousands of years before you clear the Aegean stables in customs. Would it be better if we take them out from the ambit of the Bureau of Customs and allow what we call employment at will? When we get an employee, we agree that we will pay you this much. If you do not perform, we can take you out right away. If we catch you, we can take you out right away. And that should be, and they will get the separation pay that they need. But if they get caught, of course, it will be a different matter.
Senator Ejercito is recognized to respond to Senator Gordon in lieu of Senator Legarda. You may proceed, sir.
Your Honor, Mr. President, there is an attrition law wherein their tenure of office will depend on their performance as they get appointed, their performance of their duties.
Your Honor, this is a practice really in American labor law. And this means that there's a contractual relationship between an employer and an employer. That an employee can be dismissed by an employer, or the employee can resign subject to prior conditions based on the contract of employment. Which means that when you have a hard time trying to remove people, and we do have a hard time trying to remove people there, in spite of the fact that they're gouging the eyes of the public, making us pay more taxes while they're getting rich and laughing all the way to the banks. We should, can the civil service think of, I'm just thinking out of the box now, think of a possibility such as a special breed of law that will allow employment at will. This will make it easier for us to clean up the customs.
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, the Commissioner will is open to studying that you're concerned, because I think I also had the same problem when I was mayor. There are some employees who are regular employees that sometimes they really are not anymore on their toes. So the
Yes,
civil service,
we were
the
both mayors,
commissioner.
and I know that it
Yeah.
takes a while before you remove somebody who's really totally recalcitrant, totally corrupt. Sometimes you use a term called notoriously undesirable, and that is questioned. You go to the courts, you spend a lot of money, the government spends a lot of time. You know, government should not be the vacation area for people who are crooks and corrupt. And it's about time that we start thinking out of the box and thinking of things like even policemen. You know, there is a problem with policemen also, and I'll go to that in my next question. If you do a real honest-to-goodness study, Your Honor, the civil service can fashion out that, and I think they will be doing a great service to the country, and that should, you know, we have given them privileges such as the attrition law, you know, and they can get as much as money as they want, provided they do the law, but they'd rather be corrupt, or they'd rather be, because isang labas lang, you can stay 1 year and you can be a made man. So we really have to take a look and think out of the box, and I would be beholden if they can submit a study on that matter as soon as possible. Not before we approve their budget, of course, but immediately thereafter, not before we submit their budget next year, but immediately thereafter. That would be very much appreciated, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. President, as a matter of fact, the Chair of the Civil Service is now taking notes, and they will look into the American labor law. And I really, I can relate with you, Your Honor, because as you mentioned, it takes a while to fire or to take out regular employees, even if they're not performing. So we will, the chairman said, according to the chair, that they will already look into this and address your concern.
Of course, you know that this law is a landmark law in the United States. We have in our labor code a different kind of law where we protect the labor at all costs, which also makes us not too attractive to other investors. This is for the private sector. But even so, with the government, we have a problem trying to remove people. And as you know, this is a government that is very fat around the waistline. Senators, congressmen, they recommend even if they're not qualified, and somehow they got away with it. And until we get something done about this, we will never be able to graduate into a nation that is respected in terms of the bureaucracy and in terms of civil service. Bureaucracy isn't bad, but bureaucracy must not be defenseless. That is the theory that I represent here. And if that is acceptable, I'm willing to accept that answer, provided we get the answer as soon as possible, so that we can pass it within the coming year, or even before the end of the year. That's very ambitious, but I think it is possible.
Yes, Your Honor, the strategic performance management system should be taken seriously so that we will be able to have better employees, and members of the bureaucracy will be improved. So I think that will be the key to take it more seriously.
Thank you, Your Honor. But I'd like just to remind the civil service, it took us a long time to pass the attrition law. The attrition law was passed, I think, 2004 or 5. It has not been implemented to this date. 2004. It is now 2017. And that is based on performance. So really, we have to invent a better mousetrap. And to my mind, it should really be employment at will, especially for something as important as customs, where we draw our money. You know, if we collect customs, and I've proven it here, I'm sure the chairman of the committee will bear me out, we don't have to raise taxes. We could pay for more schools, more infrastructure. At if they implemented the attrition law, they can get, for a target of 680 million, 620 billion, they can get 15 billion distributed among the 2,000 employees of the Bureau of Customs, which is several millions per customs man. But they're not willing to do that. They tried to stop it by court, and now they've done it. That's why I am forced to submit this proposal.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you for your concern, and the chair and the commissioners have already committed that they would look into that, and the employment at will will be studied carefully, and hopefully it can be endorsed and as a matter of policy.
Thank you. I think that would be very prescient, Your Honor. I just have a second question, and this pertains to the police. The police are governed by many disciplinary regulations that this Congress and previous Congress has set up, including the EAS, including something that was never implemented, like the plebs, which I lobbied for, and we're trying to put in more money to it so that the people will have a right to remove them. But upon the other hand, if we implement the Napolcom or all these provisions, when we try to implement and discipline the police, they will run to the civil service, and then it will collide with one another. Now, Your Honor, there is a provision in the Coast Guard, which is a civilian agency, that treats it as a part of the same system under the military justice system, which means the applicable and pertinent provisions of AFP military justice system shall be adopted in disciplinary cases against Philippine Coast Guard officers and non-officers. The applicable Civil Service Commission rules shall govern non-uniformed personnel. But for the uniformed personnel, we need to get a faster system. If you allow them all these rules, they get away with it. Yung IAS, magkabaro sila. I already filed a bill here. Dapat 15 days investigasyon pag nakamatay sila o ano man, and then within 15 days thereafter, they submit it to the PNP, Director General, and he can be removed, he can appeal to the Polcom. Tatakbo pa siya kumisa sa civil service, tatagal, pagka nagpalit ng administrasyon, bata ko yan, nakakalimutan na. And that's why we have bad eggs in our police force. Now, I'm saying, di ba pwedeng i-apply natin yung rules with respect to uniformed personnel? Remember, the social contract theory says, we give you arms to protect us, and that is only a privilege, not a right, but we give you that so you can protect yourself and protect us. But if you use that firearm to harm our families, to steal our property, and to kill people, you should be immediately removed. That is a concept that I put in plebs. That's why lahat ng local government, except here now, tinanggal yan, hindi nila pinapa-implement. Takot sila na matatanggal sila. Now, I was mayor, Your Honor. Ako, mabilis akong umaksyon. At saka risk taker ako. Kinukulong ko kagad yung pulis. Pinapipili ko, kulong na kita o ipapailang kita. And I promise you, to kingdom come, I will chase you para matanggal ka. Usually, the first offenders, they succumb, nagpapakulong. Sabi ko sa publiko, natatakot lahat ang pulis. If you do this, and we do IAS faster, then we will have a better police force. I submit. So would the gentlemen please find out whether we can say our way clear in allowing the police force to have the same procedures as Coast Guard?
Your Honor, Mr. President, since the police force is civilian in character, they can really go to the civil service as a last resort, just in case they have a case. But what the agency is doing right now, they are coordinating with the PNP, with the DLG and NAPOLCOM to resolve and to resolve some cases and for proper coordination.
Pero hindi po pwede some cases kailangan bilisan natin Busy na kayo
Sorry,
sa
all
rapid
cases,
fire.
Your Honor.
Yung police, ibigay nyo na sa sistemang ganyan dahil kailangan ang publiko hindi talaga masasaktan ng mga police kung mabilis tayong action. They still have the courts. They can still appeal to the office of the President. They can appeal to the Supreme Court. And my goodness, ano ba naman proteksyon niya? Kaya walang proteksyon ng tao Kaliwat kanan ang gagahasa ng pulis sa mga batas natin.
Your Honor, Mr. President, the agency has been meeting with NAPOLCOM, the PNP, so that they can act on it accordingly every time there's a case, and that the uniqueness of the case of the police cases can be acted upon accordingly as well.
Well, that's still the same system. That's still the same system. What is wrong with relinquishing that and making sure that the public can go after corrupt policemen without allowing them? Ang dami nilang palusot
Your Honor, the dilemma is that because the police is civilian in character, they can really resort to the Civil Service Commission in case
We're
they're
talking
cases.
about uniformed policemen who have arms. The Coast Guard have arms. Pero sila, yung uniform, pasok sila sa Military Court of Justice. Yung non-uniform personnel, pasok sila sa Civil Service. Huwag nyo nang saklawan ba yung mga may baril? Yung may baril, ipasa nyo na sa mga otoridad na dapat silang gagawa.
The difference between the Coast Guard and the Philippine National Police, the PNP is really civilian character, whereas the Coast Guard was formerly in the military service, but there's still a provision that
Is the Coast Guard
that's-
civilian or not?
now they are civilian.
I authored the
nature.
Coast Guard law with General Biazon. It's civilian.
They're civilian but outside the rules of the law. The discipline is outside.
Yes, they are civilian nature, Mr. President, but because of the law, they they fall outside of the coverage of the civil service.
You know, Your Honor, a military man can be a civilian. If he's not wearing his uniform, he's a civilian. When he retires, he's a civilian. So I don't see the distinction.
Mr. President, Your Honor, I think it will be good for us to be able to address the concern. Your points are valid if we can amend the PNP law so that the
Even if we
discipline.
amend the PNP law. I'm a lawyer, Your Honor. I'll say, oh, under the law, there shall be one police force, civilian in character. Ha? Sasabihin nila yan. They will even go to the Supreme Court. Eto, pag ginawa natin ito, let them appeal. Bakit ang tao mag-a-appeal? Let them appeal because they're the ones right now that are in the carpet. Lahat sila, ang dami, napapatay ng mga tao. Can you imagine the impunity that is going on in this country? You know, I will never tolerate, kahit na sino ang presidente, ang pag-aabuso ng taong may baril. Now, I don't want to have to stop the budget of the civil service.
Your Honor, Mr. President, the chair and the commissioners have committed to study further your concerns.
Your Honor, you're already studying the first proposal. The second proposal, you're going to study again. But this has been a problem ever since that has been raised. The gentleman over there, I know him. We already talked to him when we were talking about plebs, and I said, this is a problem. The Police Commission also has a problem. In fact, when the police budget comes here, you can be assured I will, like I did with the Supreme Court, look at what is missing, like the PIDEA. You heard me on the PIDEA. I'm going to go after the police as well. Don't you just one moment think that I'm after you. I'm after the welfare of the people. Salus pro populis est suprema lex. The welfare of the people is the supreme law. Now, if you cannot see that on a technicality na ang Coast Guard na dating military nga, ginawa nila yan na yung uniform, they will be subject to prompt military justice, pero yung police, yung kanilang non-uniform, pwedeng gawin na sa civil service, pwede na yun. Don't want to be unreasonable, Your Honor, but
Your Honor, Mr. President, according to the Civil Service Chair, that they will study if the law that applies to the Philippine Coast Guard can likewise apply to the uniformed men of the Philippine National Police.
is this the first time that this matter has come to you? This is not the first time. I know. The Napolcom has been asking you about this. I know, because when we discussed plebs, we raised the matter up already. This is not the first time. This should have been studied beforehand. I don't want to be the ogre here. I just want to protect the people.
Yes, Mr. President, it's true, but even the NAPOLCOM realizes the legal impediments.
May I ask for a minute recess because I don't want to do something drastic here.
Session is suspended.
Mr. President, we're ready to resume.
Session is resumed.
The Senator Gordon has brought to us a very important matter, so in the meantime, I move to suspend consideration of the budget of the Civil Service Commission and the Career Executive Service Board.
There is a motion to suspend the period of interpolation and debate for the budget of the Civil Service Commission as well as its attached agency. There being no objection, same is hereby approved.
Thank you,
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President. May I move that we call on the budget of the Commission on Audit?
Session is suspended for a minute in order to afford the COA family to locate themselves behind the sponsor.
Wala sa Civil Service Commission, sir. Hindi, under...
We're ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
May we ask Senator Legarda to present the budget of the Commission on Audit?
Before the chair recognizes Senator Legarda, may we request the pages to kindly clear the area beside and behind Senator Legarda to give the COA chairperson some room.
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Legarda is
The
recognized.
budget
You may
of the-
proceed, ma'am.
The budget of the Commission on Audit is 40 billion. I'm sorry, that's a net change. It's 11 billion 228 million. I'm hungry already. I haven't not had breakfast. 11 billion 288 million 352. And there's a addition, right? There's a 40 million augmentation by the Senate, 3 buses, sewage treatment, very important, and the rehabilitation of PSAO Region 2, 8 million.
Thank you, Mr. President. No reservation for interpolations. I move that the budget of the Commission on Audit be deemed submitted for the body's consideration.
Before the chair acts on the motion, chair would like to place on record the presence of COA chairperson Mike Aguinaldo and would like to thank him for his presence. There is a motion to close the period of interpolation and debate for the budget of the Commission on Audit and to consider the same as submitted. Is there any objection? There being none, same is hereby approved.
Mr. President, also I move that the budget of the Career Executive Service Board, which is not really under the Civil Service Commission, be deemed submitted for the body's consideration. There are no questions.
There is a motion to close the period of interpolation and debate and to consider as submitted the budget of the Career Executive Service Board. There being no objection, same is hereby approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the session until 2:30 this afternoon, where we will start with the budget of the Department of Public Works and Highways, Mr. President.
Session is suspended until 2:30? Until 2:30 in the afternoon to hear the budget of the DPWH.
Sabi ko na 2:30. Ay, wala na sila dito.
Nasabi ko na kasing 2:30. Napukpok ko na ng suspended until 2:30.